Have you ever wondered really what truly erodes our resolve? Our faith, our very sense of purpose, and maybe faster than any, grand act of rebellion. It's generally not the dramatic, sudden rejection of everything we hold dear, not some huge stumble.
Right.
No, it's actually far more subtle, isn't it? Way more insidious than that.
It really is.
It's the slow, almost imperceptible drip of compromise.
That's so true. We often focus on the big, glaring missteps, right? The kind of obvious errors that are, easy to spot and maybe quick to condemn.
Yeah, the headline stuff.
Exactly. But this deep dive, it isn't really about those. Our focus today is more on the small choices we tend to excuse.
Okay.
Those harmless habits we kind of rationalize away with a shrug, or the tiny doors we leave just cracked open, almost without noticing. And over time, these things that seem so insignificant, they allow something unwelcome to slip in. And it slowly erodes our spiritual foundations, our personal integrity, often without us even realizing the damage that's being done.
That's a really crucial distinction. And what's fascinating is that ancient wisdom, specifically the Bible, it warns us about this exact thing.
It does.
With incredibly vivid imagery, actually. It tells us pretty pointedly that it's the little foxes that spoil the vine. That's Song of Solomon 2.15. Just think about that for a second. Not wolves, not bears, but foxes.
Yeah, the small ones.
Right. It highlights how the things that seem inconsequential can actually be the most destructive.
That imagery from Song of Solomon, it's incredibly potent, isn't it?
It really is.
It just perfectly sets the stage for what we're talking about because it speaks to this universal truth. A single fox doesn't seem like a major threat compared to a larger predator.
Right, you wouldn't think so.
But a group of them, agile, persistent, quietly gnawing at the tender shoots or maybe burrowing into the roots or even just nibbling at the fruit that's starting to grow.
Yep.
They can utterly devastate the potential harvest of an entire vineyard. They really represent those subtle, seemingly insignificant threats that if you don't address them, can cause just widespread, pervasive damage.
Wow.
And sometimes irreversible damage too, not just to one part, but the entire potential of your life's vineyard.
Yeah.
Just like a Nazirite, someone set apart for a very specific purpose, had to guard against even small defilements to protect their vow, their calling.
Okay.
We also have these seemingly small things that can really undermine that sacred trust we hold.
And so our mission for this deep dive, really, is to uncover not only how these tiny compromises can, in fact, subtly derail your destiny, your calling, your purpose, maybe even your peace. But even more importantly, we're going to explore how you can identify them.
Right.
We want to empower you to confront these compromises and effectively shut those doors firmly before that insidious drip becomes, a torrent, before it's too late.
Yeah.
It's really all about being proactive in protecting what matters most to you.
That proactive approach is absolutely critical. So often, by the time the full, visible impact of these small compromises becomes, undeniable.
Yeah, when you can really see it.
The damage is already extensive. It's deeply rooted. So our aim today is really to equip you with the insight, the awareness, and maybe the practical understanding to recognize those early warning signs.
Okay.
To identify the subtle shifts that might indicate you're on a path of compromise, and hopefully to reverse course before significant loss actually happens.
So what's truly fascinating here, and maybe the most dangerous part, is the very nature of these compromises. They don't arrive with, trumpets and flashing red lights, do they?
No, not at all.
They whisper, they kind of insinuate themselves into our lives, and that's precisely what makes them so profoundly dangerous compared to the overt transgressions, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
I mean, a big sin often comes with that immediate jarring guilt, right? Maybe even societal condemnation and a clear, undeniable call for repentance.
Right, it's obvious.
But a little compromise, it just slips under the radar of our conscience, often kind of cloaked in plausible deniability.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. The deceptive power of the small lies precisely in its lack of obvious immediate harm or consequence. And this is where the psychological aspect, the rationalization, becomes kind of a master of self-deception within us.
Yeah, we're good at that.
We become really adept at these internal justifications, telling ourselves things like, oh, it's just this once, or it's a special occasion, or maybe, everyone else does it, so it can't be that bad. Or,
I deserve this.
Exactly. I deserve this small indulgence. I've worked hard. We categorize these small choices as insignificant, maybe as minor exceptions to our own rules, or even as necessary evils in a complex world. And this kind of mental gymnastics, it isn't just a fleeting thought. It's actually a cognitive bias at work, like self-serving bias, where we interpret information in a way that's favorable to our own self-interest. And it prevents us from recognizing the slow, cumulative harm they inflict. So we simply don't perceive them as threats until they've quietly established a really dangerous pattern.
That's the real trick, isn't it? What makes a harmless habit truly dangerous in the long run? It's not about the single action,
Right.
but the quiet accumulation, the almost imperceptible repetition. How do these small choices, like those little doors we mentioned, how do they start to add up and transform from just individual, isolated instances into something more pervasive? A defining lifestyle almost.
Yeah.
It feels like it's the constant subtle reinforcement of a particular inclination or maybe a distraction that slowly carves out new grooves in our character.
Exactly. And, to truly deepen our understanding here, let's explore that slow drip analogy a bit further.
Okay.
Picture water erosion on a massive rock formation. One single raindrop. It has no discernible impact. You wouldn't even notice it.
Right.
But countless raindrops falling consistently, relentlessly over, say, millennia. They possess the power to carve out vast canyons.
Wow.
Or maybe think about a tiny hairline crack in a huge concrete dam. Initially, it's just a few drops of water seeping through, easily dismissed as insignificant.
You'd probably ignore it.
You probably would.
Yeah.
But if you leave it unaddressed, that tiny crack will inevitably widen. The hydraulic pressure increases, and eventually it can lead to a catastrophic structural collapse.
Right.
The danger, you see, isn't in the single drop or that initial little seep. It's the constant unaddressed flow. The persistent, unchecked leakage that inevitably leads to extensive, sometimes irreparable damage. It's kind of the spiritual equivalent of that, the boiling frog analogy.
Oh, yeah.
If you put a frog in hot water, it jumps out. But if you put it in cool water and slowly turn up the heat,
But doesn't notice.
it eventually boils without ever realizing the danger it's in.
That analogy, it really resonates deeply with our everyday personal experiences, doesn't it?
It does.
How often do we overlook what we consider minor indulgences just because they don't seem to have immediate dramatic consequences?
All the time.
Maybe it's spending just a little too much time scrolling mindlessly on social media when we know we should be doing something more productive. Or allowing a small resentment to just simmer and fester instead of dealing with it, with forgiveness.
Right.
Or maybe consuming entertainment that we know kind of pushes our spiritual and moral boundaries.
Yeah.
In that immediate moment, we don't see the dam breaking. We don't feel the heat rising, so we easily tell ourselves, it's fine, no real harm done.
And that's precisely the insidious trap. Which brings us right back to that powerful biblical metaphor from Song of Solomon 2.15
Right.
about the little foxes that spoil the vine.
Right.
Now, for our audience who knows and follows the topic, we understand that vineyards were incredibly valuable in ancient times. They represented sustenance, prosperity, joy.
Sure.
But to grasp the full weight of that warning, you have to consider how these small foxes actually operate. They're not just after one grape.
Okay.
They systematically burrow into the soft earth, damaging the delicate root systems that nourish the whole vine.
Okay.
They gnaw at the tender shoots and the young vines, preventing growth and future fruit. They can even contaminate the fruit itself.
So it's systemic.
Exactly. An entire vineyard, the very source of a community's livelihood and future, could be utterly ruined by these seemingly insignificant creatures, not through a single bold attack, but through persistent, quiet destruction.
So what does this vivid imagery mean for us today, for your life listening right now? It profoundly suggests that even the most minor issues, if left unchecked, unaddressed, can compromise our entire life's harvest.
Yeah.
It's not just our spiritual faith that's at stake here, is it? It's our destiny, our unique calling, our potential, the health of our relationships, our mental peace, that deep sense of purpose, our very character.
That's right.
Imagine a little bitterness, if you let it linger, it can sour every interaction.
Definitely.
A small act of dishonesty, if it gets normalized, can corrupt our integrity across the board. A little apathy, if you let it grow, can extinguish our passion for life or our deepest values. It's this pervasive damage that quietly creeps into our most vital areas, threatening to derail the very life we are meant to live.
The vine here isn't just a metaphor for an individual's spiritual health. It really is a symbol of their entire spiritual and personal ecosystem.
Okay.
It represents their life's work, the very character they're building, the influence they're meant to have, the legacy they'll leave behind.
Wow.
So when those little foxes are allowed to run rampant, they don't just affect one fruit or one aspect of a person. They jeopardize the entire harvest, the totality of what that person is meant to produce and become. It's a profound, urgent warning about the widespread systemic damage that can actually stem from what we initially dismiss as just minor, isolated issues.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because our source material gives us this powerful, deeply relatable story that truly brings this whole concept of subtle compromise to life. Picture this. A man who, by all outward accounts, is genuinely devout. You know the type. He prays every single night, he leads his family with unwavering faith, and he dedicates himself to reading the word diligently.
Okay.
He is basically the kind of person you might point to as an example of solid, unshakable commitment.
Right. And then this solid, committed man makes one small choice, seemingly innocuous at first, almost trivial. He says yes to one small thing. A TV show filled with lust. And his inner monologue immediately jumps into action, rationalizing it away. It's just entertainment, he thinks. It's not real. It's just a show, a moment of fleeting pleasure or distraction.
Right, it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. Crucially, it's not an outright act of infidelity or some grand sin. It feels contained, private, harmless. But what he doesn't realize is that this seemingly minor choice is the little door that starts to open, inviting this insidious guest into his inner world. It's actually a classic example of what psychologists call moral licensing.
Okay, what's that?
It's where we allow ourselves a small indulgence because we feel we've sort of earned it through good behavior elsewhere.
I see. I've been good, so I can afford this little thing.
Precisely.
But the story tells us that over time, the ripple effect begins. His once fervent prayers, they start to feel weaker, less connected. His heart becomes easily distracted, no longer fully present in his spiritual disciplines. His mind, which was once singularly focused on his spiritual walk, becomes divided, constantly pulled towards the images and narratives of that show.
Yeah.
That seemingly minor private indulgence didn't stay private, did it? Not really, not within the confines of his living room.
Yeah.
It subtly, gradually created a highway for temptation. Not a direct, immediate fall, but a slow, insidious weakening of his spiritual defenses, brick by brick.
And this progression is absolutely critical for us to understand. What began as a seemingly innocuous act, a private, justified choice, it evolved into this pervasive internal struggle. The small door didn't just stay cracked. It became a wide-open path, inviting more and more unwelcome guests. The initial indulgence softened his resistance, making him progressively more susceptible to further compromise.
Right.
Gradually, it shifted his entire spiritual landscape. His mind, once dedicated and, pure, found itself relentlessly drawn back to the images and narratives of that show, even when he genuinely tried to pray or focus on spiritual matters.
Wow.
This just clearly illustrates how an initially minor compromise can lay the groundwork, the very infrastructure, for a much larger, more pervasive internal battle, fundamentally altering the terrain of one's spiritual life.
And this isn't just some hypothetical scenario, is it? Or an imagined narrative. It's stark reality. And the Bible offers us a historical example that echoes this, but on an even grander, more tragic scale. Think of Samson. This was a man renowned throughout his era for his incredible strength, chosen by God from birth, literally set apart with a divine calling. You would think such a person, so gifted and consecrated, would be entirely immune to small compromises, wouldn't you?
You'd hope so. Yet, Samson's eventual downfall wasn't a sudden cataclysmic event. It wasn't a single moment where he instantly lost his strength and calling.
Right.
The scripture clearly shows he toyed with compromise step by step. His Nazirite vow, that special consecration to God requiring strict adherence to certain rules, like avoiding strong drink, not touching anything dead, never cutting his hair, that was meant to safeguard his divine connection. But his compromises began subtly, interacting with Philistine women, which was a direct contradiction to his calling to separate from the surrounding pagan cultures.
Right, that was a clear boundary.
A very clear boundary. Then moving on to more direct involvement, even reveling in a feast with them. These were not grand rebellions at first, just a series of incremental deviations, each one chipping away at his dedication, each making the next, more significant compromise just a little bit easier to justify.
That's the emphasis we really need to grasp, isn't it? The cumulative nature.
Absolutely.
Samson's immense strength wasn't just gone in a single instantaneous moment. No, it was systematically eroded over time through a series of increasingly risky, disobedient choices, each one pushing the boundary further until finally it was irrevocably gone. It serves as this profoundly sobering reminder that destiny, even a divinely appointed and extraordinary one, is often lost not by miles of blatant, headstrong rebellion,
Right.
but by inches, by the steady, quiet accumulation of small compromises. Those seemingly insignificant choices, they add up bit by bit until the very foundation is so weakened it just can't hold the weight of its purpose anymore.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Samson's story reminds us powerfully that absolutely no one, not even those endowed with extraordinary gifts and clear divine callings, is immune or invulnerable to the slow, relentless erosion of small compromises.
That's a sobering thought.
It really is. His physical strength, which was truly phenomenal, was a direct manifestation and symbol of his spiritual consecration and obedience.
Okay.
When that consecration was incrementally chipped away by his choices, the strength, the very essence of his calling, it just departed. It illustrates the profound and inseparable connection between our internal integrity and our external capacity to fulfill our God-given purpose.
And this isn't just ancient history stuck in biblical texts. It's profoundly relevant for you today listening to this. As you listen, I really want you to genuinely ask yourself, what might be your TV show filled with lust today? What are the small things you might be excusing in your own life? Is it a habit you've rationalized away? An indulgence you allow yourself that kind of dulls your spiritual senses? A thought pattern you entertain, perhaps? A digital distraction you just can't seem to put down? Or maybe a subtle neglect you've normalized? Something you've labeled as harmless, but deep down, maybe you have that nagging suspicion it's slowly pulling you away from where you truly want to be, away from the person you aspire to become.
Right.
It's really worth that courageous, honest introspection because, well, the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, they really are. And given how subtly these compromises begin, it's actually a blessing that ancient wisdom provides these clear, unmistakable warnings, almost like a spiritual alarm system for our souls.
That's a good way to put it.
Our source points us to some profound scriptural warnings that cut right to the heart of this insidious issue. One of the most striking is from Proverbs 14:12, a verse that has just resonated through centuries. There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death.
Wow, seems right.
Exactly. That proverb is incredibly insightful because it highlights the deeply deceptive nature of these ways. We're not talking about a path that obviously looks wrong or dangerous.
Yeah.
No, this way seems logical. It seems reasonable, perhaps even highly convenient or personally gratifying in the short term. And this potent self-deception, it can be fueled by so many factors. Our own inherent biases, societal norms that aggressively normalize certain detrimental behaviors, peer pressure to conform, or simply that powerful magnetic desire for immediate comfort or pleasure.
Sure.
We can construct entire intellectual arguments, sophisticated rationalizations for why a detrimental path is actually permissible or maybe even beneficial for us.
Right, we convince ourselves.
We do. This internal justification creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, where we reduce the discomfort of conflicting beliefs by altering our perception of the rightness of our actions. And this internal maneuvering, it prevents us from seeing the true destructive trajectory until it's often far too late.
And the meaning of death, in this context, it isn't necessarily physical death, is it? It feels much broader, far more devastating.
Oh, absolutely. It can mean the death of spiritual vitality, that gradual loss of passion and zeal. It could be emotional numbness that leaves you feeling hollow, the breakdown of crucial relationships, the crushing of one's creative potential, the unfulfillment of one's unique purpose, or just the quiet erosion of joy. It's a spiritual, emotional, even psychological death that can leave you feeling empty and adrift, even if you're still physically alive and outwardly functional. It's the loss of that vibrant, abundant life you were truly meant to experience and embody.
That's powerful.
It is. And this concept ties in perfectly with the second powerful warning our source provides from Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. A little leaven leavens the whole lump.
The yeast analogy.
Exactly. For those familiar with baking, you know the transformative power of leaven, or yeast. A tiny microscopic active agent is introduced into a much larger mass of fresh dough. That small, invisible agent then stealthily permeates and transforms the entire mass. It causes it to rise, changes its texture, alters its composition. It's a silent, internal, pervasive process.
You barely see it happening.
That eventually has a visible, profound effect on the whole batch, often long before you even recognize it's at work.
So the analogy for us is, well, chillingly clear.
Oh.
One small compromise can spread like yeast until it takes over and subtly corrupts the whole heart. An initial, seemingly isolated compromise, like that TV show we talked about, or maybe a secret resentment or a small indulgence in dishonesty, it doesn't remain neatly contained in its own little box, does it?
No, it never does.
No, it begins to influence and subtly reshape other areas of thought, belief, behavior. It might subtly alter your value system, gradually desensitize your conscience, shift your core priorities, or warp your perceptions. It creates a systemic issue within your character and your spiritual life.
Yeah.
It's like a small crack that, if you don't address it, eventually invites a much larger, more devastating fracture in the foundation of who you are.
And what's truly fascinating here is the unseen process at work. Like yeast, compromise operates silently, internally, often invisibly, until its pervasive effects are undeniably manifest.
Right.
You might not notice its corrosive impact today or maybe even tomorrow.
Yeah.
But over weeks, months, or years, that little bit of leaven changes the entire texture, the flavor, the spiritual aroma of your life.
Wow.
It's an internal corruption, a moral decay, that eventually manifests externally in your decisions, your relationships, your responses, your overall spiritual health. The slow, quiet, almost imperceptible work of compromise is arguably more dangerous than overt, scandalous sin, precisely because it's so easily ignored, rationalized, and dismissed in those early stages.
Which brings us to the positive counterpoint, right? God's enduring call to holiness.
Yes.
And it's so important to clarify this. This isn't about achieving some impossible standard of perfection through our own sheer strength or willpower. I mean, that just sounds exhausting and, frankly, unattainable for any of us.
Completely.
Instead, it's about a continual, grace-filled process of daily surrender to Him.
That distinction is absolutely vital. Holiness is not about striving for an impossible, self-imposed standard through sheer willpower or human effort alone. That path inevitably leads to burnout or self-righteousness or just deep despair. Instead, it's an ongoing, dynamic, and grace-infused journey of daily surrender. It's about consciously recognizing our inherent vulnerability, humbly acknowledging our constant need for divine help and strength, and consistently yielding our will, our choices, our deepest desires to God.
Okay.
This perspective transforms holiness from an overwhelming, burdensome obligation into an attainable, liberating, and empowering process of ongoing transformation, where His boundless strength truly makes up for our inevitable human weakness.
And this framework is precisely where the enemy's subtle, cunning strategy comes into sharp focus. Because the enemy, the adversary, he never asks for everything at once. He's way too clever for that. He just wants a foothold.
It's a little opening.
Exactly. He's not typically going for the grand, immediate betrayal. He's perfectly content with that little door cracked open, just enough for him to gain entry.
That's right. A foothold is essentially just a small advantage, an opening, an initial point of entry that, once you grant it, can be exploited and expanded.
Okay.
Think of it like a military siege. The enemy doesn't expect to knock down the main gate of the fortress immediately. He tirelessly looks for a small weak point, a forgotten side door, maybe a tiny crack in the wall that goes unnoticed.
Right.
Once granted, even a minimal foothold can be systematically exploited, meticulously widened, and eventually expanded to take over the entire fortress from within.
Wow.
This connects directly back to the little doors we talked about earlier. He's not demanding the whole house up front. He just wants quiet, unchallenged access to one small room, knowing that once he's inside, he can begin to subtly influence, corrupt, and ultimately compromise the entire structure. A small curiosity can become an obsession. A minor indulgence can morph into an addiction. A fleeting thought can become a dominant pattern.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, and especially to those profound warnings we've just explored, our source really compels us to consider one of the most tragic, truly horrifying figures in human history, Judas Iscariot. He stands as this chilling testament to the ultimate devastating cost of what began as small, seemingly insignificant compromises. We all know the shocking, unforgivable act, betraying Jesus, his teacher, his friend, for what? 30 pieces of silver.
Yeah.
It's an act that has just resonated through history as the very epitome of treachery and betrayal.
And this raises an incredibly important and frankly deeply unsettling question, doesn't it?
It does.
How does anyone, even get to that point?
Yeah.
How does a person who walked intimately with Jesus, who heard his transformative teachings firsthand, who witnessed his astonishing miracles?
Right, he was there.
He was there, and he was personally entrusted with a significant, sacred role among his closest disciples. How does such an individual end up committing such an egregious, soul-destroying act?
It boggles the mind.
It does. The source makes it profoundly clear, though. He didn't wake up one day deciding to betray Jesus.
Okay.
His tragic journey began much earlier, with one little compromise, stealing from the money bag, as recorded in John 12:6. This is the absolutely critical, often overlooked detail in Judas's chilling narrative.
That seemingly minor financial transgression, systematically stealing from the common purse, that is such an incredibly powerful and telling detail.
It really is.
It wasn't a public, scandalous sin that immediately alienated him or drew condemnation.
It was secret.
Exactly. It was a secret, habitual dishonesty slowly chipping away at his integrity. And analyzing that progression, how did the normalization of what many might consider, petty theft, how did that desensitize him and gradually pave the way for the ultimate act of profound betrayal? It speaks to a slow internal rot, doesn't it? A moral decay that subtly but relentlessly chipped away at his conscience, his loyalty, his very moral compass.
The psychological shift required to move from those small, secret acts of dishonesty to a profound, historic betrayal of trust is immense. But it's a journey of gradual corruption that compromise, left unchecked, can inflict upon the human heart.
Okay.
When Judas repeatedly took from the money bag, he wasn't just committing theft. He was doing several destructive things simultaneously. He was justifying his actions to himself, building a narrative that somehow made his behavior acceptable in his own mind.
Right.
He was normalizing deceit, dulling the sharp edges of his conscience, and prioritizing immediate personal gain over integrity, loyalty, and the communal good. Each act of theft, no matter how small it seemed, reinforced a pattern of self-interest and a callous disregard for trust. This cumulative desensitization made the thought of betraying Jesus for a larger sum of money not only less shocking, but less morally repugnant to his increasingly compromised and hardened heart. The little compromise of theft created an internal environment where the grand betrayal became not only possible, but in his severely distorted view, perhaps even logical or expedient.
And maybe, just maybe, that's you today, listening to this. The source powerfully challenges you to look inwards, to take a deeply personal mirror to your own life, and honestly examine what you see. Perhaps it's that bitterness you keep feeding, replaying old hurts, refusing to extend forgiveness, building walls around your heart.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a relationship, deep down isn't truly God's will for you, but you cling to it out of a misguided sense of comfort, maybe fear of being alone, or just a desire for immediate gratification.
Right.
Or it could even be a secret sin you quietly excuse as not that bad, something you believe maybe no one else sees, something you've neatly tucked away in a hidden corner of your life. Like constant digital distraction or subtle forms of intellectual dishonesty or unaddressed anxieties, maybe even passive neglect of your physical or mental health.
This is a profound invitation to honest, courageous self-assessment, to truly examine those subtle, often hidden areas in your life where you might be making excuses.
Yeah.
Are there little compromises that you're allowing to fester, perhaps out of ingrained habit, or deep-seated fear, or maybe a powerful desire for immediate, fleeting gratification? These are the hidden leaks, the quiet erosions, the subtle corruptions that are, right now, quietly shaping your character, diminishing your potential, and altering your trajectory. It takes immense courage to look at these things unflinchingly.
It really does.
Because our natural inclination is to protect ourselves from uncomfortable, inconvenient truths.
Yeah.
But the cost of not looking is far, far greater.
But friend, listening right now, it's vital to remember that God isn't exposing this truth to condemn you.
Yeah.
That's such a crucial point, a cornerstone of hope amidst this challenge.
Yes.
This isn't about shame or judgment or bringing you low.
No, absolutely not. He's exposing it to set you truly free. It's an act of profound, loving intervention. A divine spotlight shown not to wound, but to heal. Not to punish, but to liberate. He highlights the areas that are secretly holding you back, diminishing your potential, hindering your deepest joy, and keeping you from the abundant life. he actually desires for you. This is a powerful invitation to liberation, to break free from those chains that have been forged, one small compromise at a time. Not a judgment of your inherent worth or identity. It's about moving from a subtle, unnoticed bondage to genuine, expansive freedom.
The incredibly good news, as the source unequivocally declares, is that there is a way out. There is a profound transformative victory available to you right now. Jesus broke the chains of compromise at the cross. And this isn't just some, theoretical, theological concept or merely a historical event. It's a radical, transformative reality that offers complete liberation for you today.
And that is the true, comprehensive depth of this freedom. His sacrifice doesn't just forgive the big sins, it cleanses every hidden corner, as 1 John 1:9 assures us.
Every hidden corner.
Every single one. This speaks to the comprehensive, radical nature of his cleansing power. It reaches far beyond the obvious, easily identifiable transgressions and penetrates deeply into those subtle, ingrained patterns of compromise. Those harmless habits and secret justifications that have woven themselves into the very fabric of our being. It's a complete spiritual sanitation, addressing both the overt and the subtle transgressions that have accumulated over time, often unseen and unacknowledged. His grace isn't limited to the easily identifiable failures. It extends to every nuance, every hidden crevice of our human condition, offering total restoration.
And what that means, crucially, is that this isn't just about forgiveness for past mistakes, though that's hugely important. It's about empowerment for present and future living. It's about decisively breaking the pattern of compromise, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
It's about embracing a new way of approaching life, one that is no longer defined by that slow erosion of our will and integrity, but by a renewed strength, a clear purpose, and a vibrant, uncompromised heart.
Precisely. And this leads us to the critical, empowering call to action. Today, you can shut every open door.
Today.
This is an active, conscious, and decisive choice. It practically entails genuine repentance, which isn't just saying sorry, but an active, intentional turning away from the path of compromise. It means setting new, firm boundaries around your time, your media consumption, your relationships, your thought life, your digital interactions. It's about courageously reevaluating commitments that might be subtly pulling you off course and making decisive choices to align your life, not just your words, with your deepest values and your divine calling. This might mean deleting an app or ending a questionable relationship, changing a habit, or speaking truth where you've been silent.
And it absolutely requires a passionate, unwavering declaration, doesn't it? A bold statement of intent.
It does.
You can right now say, enough is enough. My heart, my home, my faith, my entire life belongs to Jesus alone. That's a powerful statement of ownership, isn't it? A reclaiming of spiritual territory that may have been slowly conceded. It's a definitive commitment that draws a line in the sand once and for all.
And there is immense liberating empowerment inherent in such a declaration. It truly is an active reclaiming of spiritual ground that may have been slowly, subtly, insidiously conceded through those small compromises. It signifies a courageous refusal to allow the enemy any further foothold, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant it might seem. It's saying with real conviction, I choose integrity, I choose holiness, I choose the path of life, freedom, and purpose.
Yes.
That declaration, made in partnership with the transformative power of Christ, begins to immediately reverse the damage, rebuild what was lost, and set you firmly on a trajectory of restoration and breakthrough.
And as you make that courageous stand, as you take that decisive action, it's so profoundly important to reassure yourself, and for us to reassure you listening, that this journey of restoration isn't about self-effort alone. We mentioned that earlier, but it bears repeating.
Definitely.
It's about returning to a place of abundant grace, a place of unwavering support and unconditional love.
Your breakthrough truly begins with one step back into his arms. It's not about perfecting yourself before you come to him. It's about coming exactly as you are, with all your compromises, your struggles, your hidden habits, your vulnerabilities, and allowing his grace and his strength to do the deep, transformative work within you. This highlights the supportive, redemptive, and profoundly relational nature of the process, rather than some solitary, arduous struggle. It's an open invitation to a relationship where complete healing and profound transformation are not only possible, but eagerly awaited, even after significant erosion has occurred. Hashtag outro.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let this really be a stark, urgent reminder, and maybe a powerful call to action for you. Don't wait.
Could do all
Wait
right.
for the subtle cracks to become a catastrophic collapse. Don't wait for seemingly harmless compromise to slowly but surely steal your destiny, your joy, your peace, your purpose.
And remember, this isn't just some abstract spiritual concept confined to sermons or ancient texts. It has profound, undeniable implications for every single facet of your life.
Right. Your relationships, your work, your mental and emotional health, your inner peace, your creative output, the legacy you leave behind. The biggest changes, the most profound transformations, the most liberating breakthroughs, they often begin with the courageous act of acknowledging, confronting, and decisively addressing the smallest issues.
Yeah.
Those little foxes and slow drips that we've been talking about today. It starts there.
So the question we leave you with is this. What little compromise are you ready to courageously surrender and address today, knowing with absolute certainty that this single decisive step can fundamentally redefine and redirect your entire future?